Ladies and gentlemen, the border battle is heating up. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to UnwokeThoughts. We are once again talking about Texas, our southern border, and Greg Abbott's refusal to recognize the authority of the Biden administration, Department of Homeland Security, their authority over their border, because Greg Abbott says that the Biden administration has abdicated its responsibility to enforce the immigration laws, and that Texas actually has a constitutional right, maybe even duty, to defend and protect itself against an invasion. But what you see here, guys, is the newest development in this border battle. What you are looking at here on my screen is a list of states, the ones that are colored in red, that are siding with Greg Abbott in his fight against the Biden administration and somewhat the Supreme Court. What we have here, we have Montana, we have North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia that are siding with Greg Abbott over this border situation. Guys, this is pretty insane. This is the closest we've come to anything resembling a civil war, because you no longer have just Greg Abbott tweeting and, hurling insults and telling the Biden administration that they need to start doing their job. No, you have Greg Abbott, who is actually taking Texas National Guard, sending them to the border, kicking the Biden administration's Department of Homeland Security out of key areas because the Biden administration is removing and moving blockades, cutting razor wire, removing flotation devices that are all used to stem the flow of illegal immigration over our southern border. So Greg Abbott said, enough. I've had enough. You are not allowed in some of these key areas, and the Biden administration does not like this one bit. But here are some tweets from some of the governors that are supporting Greg Abbott in his decision to do these things. Ron DeSantis said if the Constitution really made states powerless to defend themselves against an invasion, it wouldn't have been ratified in the first place, and Texas would have never joined the Union when it did. Texas is upholding the law while Biden is flouting it. So that's a win for Ron DeSantis. He stood up for Greg Abbott in this border fight. And Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, said Greg Abbott is doing the job Joe Biden and his border czar refused to do. To secure our border, the Biden administration has turned every state into a border state. We must stop the flow of fentanyl, save lives, and secure our southern border. And Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, tweeted, Governor Abbott is exactly right to invoke Texas' constitutional authority to defend itself. The Biden administration has created a national security crisis and put Americans in danger. Their failure is an unconstitutional dereliction of duty. And Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma made it short and sweet when he said, Oklahoma stands with Texas. Guys, this is incredible stuff. You have states taking sides, and these governors are showing their support and solidarity with Greg Abbott when he said that he will fulfill his constitutional duty to protect his border against invasion. But Governor Abbott went on Fox News today and he excoriated the Biden administration, and he said that they have truly abdicated their responsibility to enforce these immigration laws, and he made it clear his stance that Texas has a constitutional right to defend and protect itself, and that they will continue to hold the line. Listen.
What Texas is doing is just very simple, and that is because the Biden administration has really, truly abdicated its responsibility to secure the border and enforce the laws. Texas very simply is securing the border. And so we put up the razor wire that you were talking about, Bill, and we put up all these barricades that actually have denied illegal entry. And as you pointed out also in that screen, there are criminals coming across our border. Texas has a right as a state to stop criminals from coming into our state, to make arrests of those criminals. And we have National Guard as well as Texas Department of Public Safety officers who are there to make those arrests and to deny illegal entry. And Joe Biden actually does have an option here. Joe Biden's option is to enforce the laws of the United States and stop this illegal entry.
Wow, what a novel idea, right? Joe Biden has an option. He has the option to enforce the laws of the United States. Wow, really? That happens anymore? Wow, that's incredible. And to some of the people that might say, well, these aren't criminals. Well, I mean, actually, technically they are. They are ignoring the laws of the United States by crossing over the border illegally in the first place. So automatically, they are criminals. There is a process to getting to the United States as a legal immigrant. If they want to come in to the United States, they should come in legally in a structured manner so we can make sure that they don't present a threat to the citizens that already live in the United States. But surprise, surprise, it's not just Republicans who are standing with Greg Abbott in his decision to protect the Texas-Mexico border using his Texas National Guard troops. There are also some Democrats. Case in point, Yolanda Ramon, who is a candidate for county commissioner, praised Greg Abbott for his decision.
Live from Eagle Pass, Texas, and Matt, bring us up to date where we are now. Hello and good morning.
Well, Bill, our viewers know for years now we've been reporting from inside this park, and migrants have been able to freely cross into this park and the United States. Well, now, over the past week or so, we have not seen any large groups being able to get inside of this park. There is row after row of razor wire and fortification, and it seems like it is working. Texas is also now arresting migrants who illegally cross into Texas. Under Governor Abbott's new emergency declaration, Texas DPS says last night it arrested 3 men for criminal trespass after they crossed through the razor wire. One man that was from Ecuador. Also today, the Texas National Guard is scheduled to install hundreds of yards of additional fencing and razor wire to bolster this park's border. This is pretty much in defiance of the lawsuit between the Biden administration and Texas. The federal government wants full access to this park and the ability to potentially remove razor wire as it sees fit. Now, all this is happening in Maverick County. We talked to a Democratic candidate for County Commissioner, Yolanda Ramon. Yolanda is also the former Democratic Mayor Pro Tem of Eagle Pass. Yolanda tells us she gives Vice President Harris a, quote, -30 failing grade as borders are. And Yolanda says most people in this region would praise Republican Governor Abbott for seizing this park.
He's helping a lot more than anybody has here. You know, again, I know that's a controversial issue here because I know there are a lot of people who don't want to hear that. But if you live here, if you're here in the community, then definitely, I mean, thank you.
So I guess there is some bipartisan support on this issue, but it's just not coming from the federal government because where are their priorities? I really don't know. Probably, I could guess. Probably Ukraine, but we'll get into that in a second. But Democrats are not happy. Democrats in general, the ones that are in Washington, D.C. in general aren't really happy about this development that Greg Abbott is just ignoring the authority of the Biden administration, which really has no authority at all in this issue, as Greg Abbott made clear, because as he said, Texas has a constitutional right to defend its border against invasion, but Castro, I don't know how you say his first name. I'm just going to say Castro. He tweeted out slamming Greg Abbott for his decision and for his actions. He says Governor Greg Abbott is using the Texas National Guard to obstruct and create chaos at the border. If Abbott is defying yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, POTUS needs to establish sole federal control over the Texas National Guard now. This would essentially escalate things to where the federal government, the Department of Homeland Security, and Greg Abbott's Texas National Guard would be at a standstill. They would be clashing because he wants Joe Biden to take control over the Texas National Guard. And what do you think the Texas National Guard is going to do? Do you think that they would actually allow that to happen? So this would be a serious escalation in this situation, and it would bring us closer to a civil war than we have ever been since the actual Civil War. This would be like a modern day civil war. And oddly enough, it's over our border. It's over a governor wanting to protect his state from invasion and these potential criminals coming over into the United States. But nobody really knows what the Biden administration is really doing about the southern border, other than removing barricades, removing blockades, and just allowing the immigrants to just freely flow over the border. And John Kirby, who is the National Security Council coordinator for strategic communications. Now, if that sounds like a mouthful, it is, But what does that mean? So that position, John Kirby's position, is essentially to coordinate interagency efforts to explain United States policy. And listen to this when he is pressed on the issue of the southern border. Tell me if this explains the United States official policy or the official policy of the Biden administration on the southern border.
They're moving along well, and we're negotiating
No, they're not.
in good
I mean,
faith.
they're not. I mean, they're not, is what we're hearing, that they're not really moving along well. And, you know, you say that he's been concerned about it for 3 years, but that's failing, obviously. Because when you have
Well, look,
record numbers
I think
of people coming in, that means the policy is failing. So why not change gears and try to do something that works?
I think it's important to put this in context too, Martha. You're seeing, as you rightly said, record numbers of people, and it's not just the United States that are facing that pressure. Lots of countries in the hemisphere, including Mexico, is facing a lot of pressure at their own southern border. I mean, there are more people on the move in this hemisphere right now than there has been since World War II, and it's a lot
John, do
of
we have a
reasons for
border?
forcing
Do we have
people
a
to go.
southern border?
Do we have a what?
Do we have a southern border?
Yes, ma'am. Of course we do.
Then how come people can flow across it every single day?
We are
Hundreds and
working
thousands of people over the course, 300,000 people in December.
We're working very hard to try to fix that, Martha. That's why we need congressional action. That's why the president asked for additional funding, more than $6 billion in the supplemental to try to get border security enhanced. I mean, I think you and I are obviously not going to see the policy solutions the same way, and I respect
Well, I'm just
that.
looking for
But
results. I'm saying if you're concerned about the number of people crossing, you're not getting results. So at some point you have to say, we got to do something different.
Well, the idea that we haven't looked at this and tried to work on this and trying to work in concert with Congress is just not true. We are. This is a complicated issue, and it's going to require a real team approach, not just from the executive branch, but from the legislative branch as well.
So first off, John Kirby claims that the Biden administration is negotiating in good faith and working very hard to rectify the situation at the border. And then he throws out excuses that, hey, but look at all these other countries. They're also experiencing issues just like us. And then he says, well, yeah, we're working on this. We have legislation in place that would fund border security, but not once does he try to explain the reality of the dynamics between the Biden administration and the southern border, how they are removing razor wire, cutting razor wire, removing blockades, removing these flotation devices that prevent people from coming across the river. Not once does he try to explain that. All he says is, but we're working on legislation that is supposed to fund border security. Well, yes, I wonder what that legislation is. And I wonder if it has anything to do with Ukraine. So Chuck Schumer had a meeting with Biden about border security and funding for Ukraine. And this is the conclusion that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats and Joe Biden have come up with. He says there were a couple of people in the room who said, let's do border first. And the Democrats said, no, let's do both together. So essentially what is happening here is they will not fund any type of border security until we also fund Ukraine. So this begs the question, and this is the question I have. Why is Ukraine funding taking precedence over funding for the United States of America? Let's hear Chuck Schumer, in his own words, try to explain this.
Responding to these developments and Jeffries as well, the House Democratic
Within a
leader.
year, we would be on our back foot doing all kinds of things that we wouldn't want to do. That it was essential, and there was Democratic and Republican agreement that it was essential we help Ukraine. We also talked about the border and how it's so important to deal with the border. The president himself said over and over again that he is willing to move forward on border. And so we said we have to do both. There were a couple of people in the room who said, let's do border first. We said we have to do both together. In the Senate, and let me make one more point, the only way we will do border and Ukraine, or even either of them, is bipartisan. You cannot do things with one party in a divided Congress.
So basically the Democrats are holding the United States hostage, and they're dangling it in front of our eyes and saying, listen, if you want to secure the southern border, if you want a safe country, we're going to have to fund all these other foreign countries first. And why is that happening in our government? Why are they putting these other countries first? You know, I'm under the impression that the government of the United States of America should put America first. They should first secure the border, first fortify our own borders, and then maybe discuss funding maybe these other countries or whatever. I mean, I'm not for that. I'm more of, hey, maybe we should keep the money here at home and improve our own country. But no, they want to tie all these things into one bill while allowing our border to fall apart and actively interfere with Greg Abbott's efforts to actually do the job that they were elected to do. But what do you guys think? What do you think is the end result of this? Do you think that this bill will pass? We will fund Ukraine, we will fund Israel, and the border will be funded, and this will all just go away? What do you guys think about the Democrats using the border as leverage to get funding for Ukraine? Let me know down below in the comments. Like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.